What's up, everybody? Welcome back. So it looks like Mr. Sam Bankman, our boy Bankman Fried, made it into the news again. This came out just last week, and it appears that he was trying to influence some witnesses in the case that the DOJ has been prosecuting against him for his degenerate criminal activity in stealing people's money and investing with it and trading with it. We'll read a little bit about this. This is coming out of CoinDesk. DOJ claims Sam Bankman-Fried tried to influence witness testimony, and they ask for a communications ban. So they're going to try to restrict his ability to communicate with people pertaining to this case. Subheadline reads, a court document filed by prosecutors on Friday alleges Bankman-Fried messaged FTX US General Counsel Ryan Miller on Signal asking to reconnect and vet things with each other. I think that's very interesting. He's trying to control, it looks like, the narrative a little bit around his case as more of this information comes out. Federal prosecutors wrote a letter to U.S. District Court Judge Louis Kaplan on Friday requesting that he modify the conditions of Sam Bankman-Fried's bail to include a ban on private communications with current and former employees of FTX and Alameda Research. So I think maybe even this Mr. Ryan Miller here probably outed him because Signal is supposed to be private. And so unless they are also looking over his messages and he's not smart enough to delete them, he may have been outed. The Department of Justice DOJ's request comes after Bankman-Fried reached out to at least one FTX employee identified as Ryan Miller, the current general counsel for FTX US, to allegedly attempt to influence his future witness's testimony, which is illegal. Quote, I would really love to reconnect and see if there's a way for us to have a constructive relationship, use each other as resources when possible, or at least vet things with each other's. The DOJ letter wrote, quotes Bankman-Fried is saying with Miller. So he's definitely trying to control the narrative right now when it comes to the case and see if he can kind of weasel people onto his side of things. Prosecutors also requested that Judge Kaplan prevent Bankman-Fried from using any encrypted or ephemeral call or messaging application, including but not limited to Signal, which I find very interesting because, again, why he would do that to begin with is just ridiculous and very, very foolish. But also, too, so he must have been outed by this guy. Probably smart to do that as well, cover your butt. In the letter to the court, prosecutors said Bankman-Fried used the Signal app to reach out to Miller, as well as other current and former FTX employees, which prosecutors describes as the very people who until recently were the defendant's underlings, whom he supervised and financially compensated, and who are therefore most vulnerable to intimidation, which is, again, very interesting. Prosecutors said Sam Bankman-Fried's message was a thinly veiled attempt to influence Miller's potential testimony, which they described as particularly concerning given Miller's firsthand knowledge of Bankman-Fried's conduct around the time of the FTX collapse. It's hilarious. I really hope that SBF goes to jail. That's exactly where he belongs. Same thing with Caroline Ellison and anybody else that was part of this gigantic degenerate fraud. It goes on to say, in quotes, Miller participated in Signal and Slack communications with the defendant and a small group of company insiders during the relevant events of November 2022. Prosecutors had said, in those messages, amongst other things, Bankman-Fried gave instructions for liquidating Alameda's investments to satisfy FTX customer withdrawals and indicated that he transferred approximately $45 million of Alameda's funds to FTX US to fill an apparent hole in the FTX balance sheet. And that probably would have been avoided had you not been a degenerate and been investing in all kinds of crazy things like these weird VC firms like Medulla Capital with depositors' money. The prosecutor's claim, if true, would refute Bankman-Fried's continued declarations on social media and elsewhere that FTX was solvent at the time of his empire's collapse. And if you've been following the stories that were coming out, especially by people like CoffeeZilla, you'll know that he was doing this. He was on Twitter, and he would make these ridiculous claims. Apart from the fact that they were solvent, claims about not really understanding where they were financially, etc., which is, again, ridiculous. The guy was a multi-billionaire. He was in control of all kinds of money through all kinds of different banks and holding companies. And like I said, he was investing in weird, obscure firms that are hard to kind of find information on, like Modulo Capital. There's no way he had no idea of what exactly was going on with the funds. He was very much aware of the fact that FTX was totally insolvent and exactly what he had been doing with the depositors' money, investing in all kinds of crazy things, and paying off both sides of the political spectrum in America, the Democrats and Republicans and the rhinos. Prosecutors also told Judge Kaplan that testimony from former Alameda Research CEO Caroline Ellison, the other degenerate, revealed that Bankman-Fried purposely used auto-delete Slack and Signal messages for work communications because he knew that many legal cases turn on documentation and it is more difficult to build the case if information is not written down or preserved. So he knew, like I was saying, he knew exactly what was going on, and he knew that this eventually would come around to bite him. And this is a way to kind of prevent that from happening. And, I think points more to the fact that there's a lot more fraud and corruption going on here than we originally thought, and I think more is going to come out. Goes on to say, in quotes, "In fact, the auto-deletion of FTX, Alameda's Slack, and Signal communications has impeded the government's investigation. Potential witnesses have described relevant and incriminating conversations with the defendant that took place on Slack and Signal that have already been auto-deleted because of settings implemented at the defendant's direction," prosecutors say. So, his actions are continuing to bury himself, which, again, is just great to see. I really do want this guy in jail. I think that's exactly where he belongs, again, where Caroline Ellison belongs, and all the rest of them. We need some justice for this crap from these degenerates. How did anyone ever take this guy seriously? I really don't understand. I've seen pictures of this guy like eating Doritos and sleeping at his desk. It was all unorganized and just haphazard. Everything's all all over the place, and he's in charge of billions of dollars. Like, how could anybody trust this person with their money? Just more to the point, like I always say, you need to practice self-custody. You need to get away from these centralized exchanges, get away from the greed factors that surround things like over-leveraging your positions. Use DeFi and stop putting money into the hands of people like this. I mean, look at this face. Who would trust this guy? I don't know. It just is frustrating to me that people ever took this guy seriously. And I really am loving all the news coming out of the sphere lately around this guy. This is just like last week. It just came out that he took $400 million of investors' money and was investing it into some weird VC firm, Modulo Capital, and they don't even know exactly where that money ended up in. And so it's just a gigantic mess, and it's going to be even harder for the government to find those assets, liquidate those assets, and get that money back to the FTX users. And I really do hope that they are made somewhat whole again. It's no doubt they're never going to be made fully whole. I do know people that have lost 6 and 7 figures and more to that exchange, and hopefully that this is a lesson to them. And again, start using DeFi, practice self-custody. I guess if you want to trade a little bit, keep a little bit of money on exchanges, but for the most part, you need to get it off exchanges, onto the DeFi space, start putting it into these applications that have been around for years now, that have stood the test of time. You notice that they're not collapsing, they're not falling apart. There's no black entities behind them that are stealing your money. It's all on the blockchain, and you're going to see that's the case as we go forward as well. But we'll keep an eye on the more info that's coming out around Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried here and all the rest of his corruption that's continuing to come to light. Other than that, that's all I got for you guys on this today. I just wanted to go over this story because this did break on Friday, and I felt like I should have put out a thing on this on Saturday. But anyways, if you enjoyed the video, leave me a like, consider sharing it, and if you want to see more of this content, please subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.